Hi everyone, I'm Matt and welcome back to another Toylytics video where we take a look at the analytical side of toy collecting. In this one we're going to look specifically at the sales of Mythic Legions 1.5 wave figures in the second half of 2023 on the secondary market. So the Mythic Legions 1.5 wave is kind of another one of those forgotten waves similar to the Soul Spiller wave and some of the other lesser discussed waves that are out there. And this one was put up for sale right before the original Kickstarter figure shipped, and then obviously it was shipped after that. So let's take a look at which specific figures were in this wave, and I don't know about you, but looking at this list, it's almost hard to remember which ones are in the Mythic Legions 1.0 wave and which ones are in the 1.5 wave, and probably also the Advent K wave and some of these others too. But regardless, let's take a look at what was actually in this wave. So we have a couple trolls. We have the original forest troll. We have the original stone troll. Then we have Ilgar, Pixis, Sir Godfrey, and Unken. So kind of a mixed bag here as far as figures are concerned. A lot of popular figures historically within the Mythic Legions line. Ilgar, though, in particular, we'll see the price is not so high due to his recent re-release in All Stars 5 Plus. So specifically, according to Source Horseman, this went on sale in February of 2016 for pre-order. The original Mythic Legions 1.0 wave started shipping in May of that year. And then the Unken figure was a PowerCon debut figure. I'm going to assume it's 2016 PowerCon. I'm not sure, though. I think the 2017 ones were Adamant and Keltis, but doesn't really say on the website which one that was. But I think if you look at the various years and which ones were 2018, 19, etc., I'm pretty sure that Unken would have been 2016 then. So why don't we take a look at the sales themselves, right? So I mentioned in the Soul Spiller video when I discussed that wave, that one had relatively low sales overall. This one actually turns out to have the lowest sales of anything that I've looked at, with these 6 figures only selling 74 actual copies of those figures in the second half 2023. Looking at the list, it really shouldn't be a surprise that Ilgar sold the most because he is definitely the most available at this time. The only other one that sold even 10 times was Pixis, and everything else sold less than that. As I mentioned in previous videos, I cannot really separate Ilgar, for instance, which figures were from the All-Stars 5 wave, probably most of them, if not all of them, and which ones were the original figures, because people don't often say on eBay which figures they have, whether they're the original figures from the 1.5 wave or from All-Stars. It is possible, though, for the Trolls, because we know that the Trolls have separate additional heads when they were re-released in their version 2. So these Trolls that are listed here, these sales are definitely for the original 1.5 Mythic Legions 1.5 wave versions of those figures, because they did only come with one head. I did look at the pictures of the listings, unless somebody used the wrong pictures, but I can't really do anything about that. So looking at these sales by month, again, shouldn't be too much of a surprise since barely any of them sold more than 10 copies of the figure overall. Shouldn't be a surprise if we don't see a whole lot of sales here by month, but Ilgar sold 10 in November, kind of high. Maybe some people were buying him around LegionsCon time, remembered that figure was out, maybe saw it at LegionsCon or thought of some ideas, bought some additional parts that might go with him. Who knows? But still, 10 isn't really that high. He was selling between about 4 and 6 in other months, so 10 isn't that big of a deal. But anyway, as I've said before, these charts will be a little bit more interesting once I'm able to collect more data over time in the upcoming months. Looking at the average price by character in this wave, you can see that clearly Unken has the highest average selling price, $525. Everybody else is less than $200, but still some pretty good prices here. Sir Godfrey is $163. Pixis, very close to that, which is 160 or so. The 2 trolls, the forest troll a little bit higher, 159. The stone troll about 130. Remember, those have higher prices to begin with, so we would expect to see high prices, but forest troll is selling for a pretty good premium, looks like, according to that. And Ilgar, we're going to look at some data here on him, and it's going to be very interesting in comparison with some other All-Stars figures that we've seen. Ilgar isn't really selling for very much at all at this point, which is kind of interesting to see because I think he's a really neat looking figure. He's a unique figure, especially with that patina and the paint job. I really like him, but evidently maybe everybody else has their fill or just wanted one and didn't feel the need to buy any more. So looking at the individual sales themselves, sorry I had Unken up here earlier, so let me clear that out. So we'll start by looking at the Forest Troll. I'm not even going to break these down because they're all right here. For some reason, the only original Forest Trolls were sold at the beginning of this period in July, and none were sold for the rest of the 6 months. All the other sales were for Forest Troll 2. But regardless, we have selling prices here somewhere between 130 and about 179. So that leads to that higher average price of around 159 or 160. Okay, taking a look at Ilgar now. This is really interesting because when we look at some other All-Stars figures, we did see at least some of them were selling for higher than Four Horsemen retail prices. Remember, the retail price for a basic figure like Ilgar would be $50. So that's the highest price that basically any of these figures were sold for, and everything else was sold for something less than that. You know, new, used, repackaged, whatever. The lowest prices were $33 over this period of time. So anywhere between 33 and 50. Saw him a lot in December with a lot of the retailers having those 20% off All-Stars 5 and some of the other waves as well that are still available at retail. So it's not surprising that after, the beginning of December, basically, there were really no Ilgar figures that were sold for higher than $40 because it's pretty easy to get them at the retail level for $40. So why would anybody buy on eBay for $45 or $50 when they can just buy from a retailer and make sure that they're getting a new figure and have a little bit more confidence that way. So this is something that I've talked about a little bit before. I'll probably make a separate video once I'm done going over the second half 2023 updates, but considering that it seems like figures are staying in stock more often, or at least for a longer period of time nowadays, it might be something where people want to change their pre-ordering habits. It used to be where you really needed to pre-order these figures. There weren't a lot of retail figures once Big Bad Toy Store sold out of them. You couldn't really get them anywhere else, but now you can, right? So the All-Stars 5 wave was early in 2023. That came out like in April or May, and still in December, right? These are being sold at a 20% discount because they're still in stock. So times are changing a little bit, and that's really good for customers in the community, right? Collectors in the community, because they're having access to these figures for a much longer period of time, so that if they buy one and like it and want to buy a few more for customs or for army building, there is that possibility now. Whereas in the past, if you didn't buy them all up front or very close to after some of the retailers got them, you were kind of out of luck and probably looking at $70, $80, $90 for those figures in the future. So this is something to keep in. This phenomenon is something to keep an eye on. It's going to be a little bit more evident when we look at the Cosmic Legions figures as well, and it's not really evident in Figure Obscura because remember, those generally, unless they're the retail exclusive, the regular Figure Obscura figures are only sold through Store Horseman right now. So those tend to go up in price pretty significantly after the initial sale, but Cosmic Legions Wave 1 we're going to see, spoilers, they haven't gone up in price very much either, and they're following a lot of the same trends that we're seeing with this Ilgar figure. So anyway, something to keep in mind for the future as you want to build out your own legions as to when you maybe need to jump on these when you see them. All right, moving on, Pixis. Not a whole lot of sales for Pixis. For some reason, I thought maybe this was because of the vote for All-Star 6 that all of these were being sold in September, but that happened back in May, and we knew about it at the beginning of June that Pixis wasn't chosen as the alumni option. So I'm not really sure why so many of these Pixi, whatever the plural is, these Pixis figures were sold for a pretty low price, comparatively, in mid to late September. But every other time, the price has been going up. You can could see that even the cheapest other figure outside of that September window was around $139. So I would say that if you're looking for Pixis, probably, I mean, we'll see what happens if there is another All-Star wave in 2024. If he's an option again, I don't know. Nobody knows at this point. But if you see him for, somewhere between 120 and 140, you can, tell that that's a pretty good price based on what he's been over the past 6 months. All right, Sir Godfrey. So if you're not familiar with Sir Godfrey, he is one of the sort of special Templars. He's a kind of traditional Knight Templar with some special deco. I've never really been a big fan of his. I'm not a big fan of the regular Templars, and especially with the new figures, Sir Enoch and Sir Elijah that are coming, the new Templars that are coming. I don't really see the appeal in my collection to go out and grab a Sir Godfrey for, $150, right? Which is basically what he's been going for. Some people have been able to get him loose for, 100 or so to 125, but in general, he's been 150 or above, and on average, he was around 160 or so, according to the previous chart. So, if my recommendation personally for me, when I'm doing, I don't have a Sir Godfrey in my collection, not really looking to get one. I'm waiting for those, $37 figures that I ordered in the Necronominus and the All-Star 6 wave to come out with the added articulation that we saw in the Valiant Knight. It's probably a better idea to just wait for those rather than chasing him down. But if you really do want to chase him down, you might be able to get lucky and grab him for somewhere around 120, but generally he's going for 150 and up. Okay, let's look at the original Stone Troll. Few more sales here than the Forest Troll had. We have one that was sold for 130 here, a few that were sold for less than that, so right around retail for 107.50 and then 120, and then a few others more recently had sold for 145, 125, and 152. So this is one where I probably would hold off on getting the version 2 of the Stone Troll if I was going to get one, because you get that additional head and things like that, the ability to swap the heads. It's my understanding that these original trolls weren't really made for swapping, so it can be really hard to change the heads on those. So I probably wouldn't be chasing this one down because I think we have a better option out there right now in the Stone Troll 2. And then finally, the big boy of the wave, the one that is the bane of many Masters Tributes collectors like I am. This is Unken. Okay, so there was one that was sold back at the sort of beginning of October that was a little bit less than $400, and it is amazing to say that that was a super good deal because the next lowest one that was sold was for $438 back in July. We had a new one sold for right around $700, and then the other ones have been anywhere between $500 and $560 or so more recently. So this is one where, I wish I had been in the line back then. I definitely would have bought one. I would have been all in for all the Masters Tributes. He's the only one to this day that I don't have, but I'm probably resigned to not having him at this point, unless I see one in the that isn't going for too high of a price. I'm not sure I would pay $400 for one. I have paid close to that for Adamon, but I don't know. I think he's a more interesting figure for me than Unken is. I'm not the hugest fan of Man-at-Arms overall, but I would definitely like to have him. So if I saw a deal that I was happy with, I would definitely be jumping on it. But just know that it's not likely that you're going to see one for less than $400 at all, and probably not less than $500, unless you're able to find somebody on the Cabal that has one, or maybe is looking for a trade or something like that, and you can work something out that way. Some of the highest dollar value figures that I have in my collection, I actually got by trading another member of the Cabal some Mondo figures. So it's a Mondo Masters figures that were not available anymore. I traded them, and I got some Grails that I had been looking for that would have been $200 or so on the secondary market if I had tried to buy them individually. So that's where I got my Rhaegar, that's where I got my Steelhide, and that's where I got my Jordan Runeshaper, all through trading a couple Mondo figures for those. So those kind of deals can happen, and that may be people's best outlet to try to get an Unkin if they want one. But if you want to go buy one, probably looking at somewhere around 500 right now or anytime soon. So that is it for the Mythic Legions 1.5 wave. Again, it's hard to keep track of what's in 1.5 versus 1.0, but I think we can all agree that definitely some legendary figures in the Mythic Legions line came out in this wave, and it's interesting to see sort of the range in what they're going for and really what an All-Stars re-release can do. So thanks again for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment if you have any questions or have any additional analysis that you'd like to see. I'm happy to consider doing some additional analysis if it's something that the data enables me to analyze. And keep looking out for the next Toylytics videos. As I said before, I am going to start working, as I'm done with this, I'm going to start working on the Cosmic Legions Valkatar Book 1 wave, and then I'll also be looking at Figure Obscura. So in the next couple weeks, we'll be seeing both of those, and I think those will be pretty interesting because those lines are pretty popular overall. So take care, everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.